Training to failure. Now, working out to the point of failure is kind of subjective. People talk about working out to failure a lot, but the honest truth is not as many people are working out to failure as they probably think they are. So pushing yourself to the point that you can't do an exercise anymore is very hard, both physically but also mentally. I'm not saying people can't do it because they're not mentally strong enough to do it. They probably just not had a situation where they've been pushed to that point. If you're ever training someone in a gym and you say at the end of what they think the set's going to be, you want two more, they can usually squeeze those extra two out. But often the repetition range puts an end point into what people think they can do because it presets a perceived end point. So it's important when you're thinking about failure, what failure really is. Or what failure definitely isn't. Failure definitely isn't cardiovascular failure. So if you're doing a series of exercises back to back and you're just tanked because aerobically it's hard to keep going, that's not failure, not from a strength setting standpoint. Failure in a strength setting standpoint is you're pushing the muscle to the point they can't physically produce force anymore. The next thing is technical failure. So if you're doing a movement pattern that's quite high skill, and that's going to be anything really from a press up through to a squat, they're all multiple joint movements, they're all quite high skill movements, so therefore technical failure is probably what kicks in before real failure. So real failure kicks in, it's much more noticeable when you're doing isolation exercises, where you're just doing like a bicep curl or a tricep press, where you're just pushing the one joint to the point you physically can't do anymore. Those isolation movement patterns are a really good place to learn how to push yourself to failure. So never mistake cardiovascular failure and technical failure as true muscular failure. And I would just say to sort of break out of the confines of a rep range. If you're pushing yourself week on week, and we've discussed already progressive overload, and you're able to kind of like add a rep, add weight and push yourself, but some days you'll walk into the gym and you'll be just feeling great and you'll be able to push yourself even harder still. It's quite important to harness those moments to really maximize the training that you're doing to push yourself that little bit harder. But like I said, it's much easier to do in isolation exercises. It's a little bit harder to do in the compound exercises, which is why sometimes having a training buddy is a really great way to push yourself that much harder. Training in a community of people that want to push harder is a really great way to experience that feeling of failure. And the next way to do it is to look at things called forced reps, which I'll touch on in another video. Forced reps is a great way to start to push yourself a little bit harder each session.